I'm not her, you know.
Maria told me about Sarah.
No. Don't say another word.
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I've lost people too.
You have no idea
What loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died
Or left me. Everybody.
fucking except for you.
So don't tell me that I'd be safe with somebody else.
Because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right.
You're
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
The Last of Us means so much to so many people. Not only the developers who made the games, from the technicians to the actors and musicians, but also the people who experienced their work, who played it and were told this story. It's one people have sat and lived with for years, and so intrinsically built as a "what would you do" scenario, taking two strangers across America in search of something better. Live, laugh, loving along the way. Also losing. There's a lot of losing people. And murder. Can't forget that one. It's a story that you can't help getting attached to. The fact that you primarily play as Joel not only means that by the end Ellie has become his surrogate daughter, but as we're along for the ride, and I don't want to get too communist on you, she becomes our surrogate daughter. Everything's grounded, even the high art walkers, clickers, are somewhat rooted in science. Naughty Dog makes sure to keep everything tangible, grounding the stories, characters and world. The game now spans 3 console generations and is often touted as one of, if not the greatest game of all time, which is no mean feat, and looking at what the team accomplished, it's easy to see why it's such a common sentiment. Video games have had an unfair time in being taken seriously as an art form. Not that it needs anyone's external validation, because as a vehicle for storytelling, it is one of the most exciting, immersive and experimental, finding new methods of making the player feel in ways other mediums never could. A short and simple example is in 2018's God of War, in particular the trip to Helheim. Throughout the whole game, you've been relying on a mechanic in combat sections with the help of Atreus. And during this section, where he's otherwise preoccupied, it keeps making the player so much more aware of his absence. I was so used to utilising his arrows that it was almost muscle memory to keep using them in combat, and now that it's no longer there, every time I press the button and nothing happens, it reminds me why I'm there in the first place, emphasising that loss in a way dialogue just doesn't. And even explaining it, it feels like it's such a null point. It's the first-hand experience and feeling you get from it that makes it so effective. A similar thing happens in The Last of Us. After everything with David, when Ellie has disassociated, you go to raise her up, something you've been doing the whole game, but she's off in her thoughts. It's such effective showing not telling, because you're used to pressing this button and the thing happens, and they hold the door or help you get to a ledge. In terms of being an interactive story, The Last of Us is incredibly linear, because at the end of the day, it's a very authored experience. I'm very aware that I'm playing as Joel, not a self-insert of myself or my own character. He also makes decisions that I wouldn't, and there isn't too much room for emergent gameplay. Any medium in its infancy copies what's already established and what came before it. Video games are still so young that to liken it to film, I don't think we've even hit shooting in colour yet, in regards to what games can achieve. So it's only natural for books to be emulated by films, and then films emulated by games, before they find their feet as their own thing. For as much as I love The Last of Us, these characters in this world, yeah, I'm playing a film. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with that, but especially in the AAA single-player space, if it's not open world, you'll typically watch a cutscene and then be presented by the next shooting gallery, ready for another cutscene, which will open up to the next shooting gallery. It's a tried and tested formula that lots of great games fall into. It just doesn't feel like it utilises the interactivity to its fullest potential. Like it's the devs pushing you down a narrow path rather than giving you all the tools and a signal in the distance and just saying, good luck. The amount of times I get to the end of a game knowing nothing about the dude I was controlling, because as an experience it was focusing on the gameplay or the world or what have you. As much as I love Dying Light, for example, Carl Crane isn't as interesting a character as Michael Corleone. But in a film or book, where for the most part everyone has the same experience, everyone has their own stories in games. For as much as I love The Godfather, I don't feel like I'm the one renouncing Satan. Whereas, if I've not reserved my ammunition properly, so I'm now in trouble, or I'm out on a mission collecting my herbs, and I'm caught off guard, suddenly realising it's just gone dark, I am the one suddenly needing to race back to safety. It's not extending empathy out to that character like you do in books and film, because in games, you are that character. This isn't to rag on games emulating films, not in the slightest. I think that The Last of Us and Red Dead 2 are up there as the pinnacles of what games like this can achieve. Which leads me on to adaptations. With similar storytelling methods, adaptations from books to films are as common as breathing air. It seems like every new show or film is either based on a true story or based on a book. Video game adaptations, however, don't really have the same reputation. From years of films where fans have commonly felt that it is just cashing in on the name, seeing it as nothing more than expanding an intellectual property for shareholders instead of finding an interesting story to tell. So for many, game adaptations have dug their own grave, garnering the video game curse, with each and every adaptation announced, leaving fans with bated breath on if this will finally be the one to break it. At some stage, it seemed like maybe the mediums are just too different to make it as critically successful as they tend to be commercially. I know shows like Arcane and Edgerunners are great examples of people taking characters or the world from video games, then expanding on it in another medium. And yeah, they are great achievements, with one even reviving the source material. I still draw a blank on when we've had a faithful adaptation that isn't just set in the world or exploring certain characters, but fully adapting the narrative you play in the game, right into the one on film. Book adaptations don't represent the entirety of books. You take each one on their own merit, but game adaptations feel like they represent every single video game ever created. A good video game adaptation was kind of assumed to be impossible. A lot of the appeal of this style of Naughty Dog game is that it was action previously reserved for the big screen, just now you get to control it. So when seeing something like this, of course you're going to want to see how that would translate onto film. An important thing to know about me is that I am a cynical, miserable bastard. So I always thought, why? What would another medium add to this story that's not already there? I've already been the cameraman and one half of the lead actor, so what would taking that out achieve? Not just as a filmmaker myself, but I adore sharing stories, recommending fiction and showing friends films whilst I uncomfortably stare at their faces, making sure they laugh and cry at all the right moments. So knowing how many people who would never pick up a controller, that would adore this world, gasp at decisions the characters would make and just love this story, I think everyone was so excited at the possibility of this being the one that could break the supposed curse. The game is right there. That's all the previs you need for a show. You can see exactly how shots can be composed, pitch-perfect performances, the tone, the building blocks are all there. Just click them into place. If game adaptations are impossible to nail, then this should be the easiest one, right? When The Last of Us adaptation was announced to be an HBO show, I was incredibly relieved. Not only because a show rather than a film would give you the proper time to live with these characters, as to me the downtime is kind of where Naughty Dog's writing shines. The banter back and forth, just making you fall in love with these people. Throw as many glossy set pieces my way as you want, but I will never not want to hear more of Ellie's bad jokes, or just want to give her a high five, which, if you missed the high five, you are dead to me. The icing on the cake was hearing that Craig Mazin would be show running it with Neil Druckmann. Our baby girl was in the safest hands. One of the first impressions an adaptation makes to the general audience is the casting. How are the characters I know and love going to be represented? When I first saw the casting for Joel was, I'm your dad. No, I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play the clip. When I first saw that my husband Pedro Pascal had been cast as Joel, I was like, wow, that's him. Because visually it's very easy to get the Joel Miller makeover. Hints of grey in the beard and hair, check. Just grab yourself a torch and the look is complete. No, I said no. Then for Ellie, Bella Ramsey was announced, who I, like most people, was mainly familiar with through their work on Game of Thrones. And I was hit with this humongous hurdle of them not looking like a younger Elliot Page and different to the in-game character. And because of that, how on earth could they bring them to life? And I was reading the wrong script there. Bella Ramsey was announced and I was really excited because what an interesting pick. I'd seen a few fan casts online with other actors in the role, but I hadn't seen Bella's name floated around. Who knows these characters better than Neil Druckmann? So I eagerly anticipated what these two performers would bring to the roles, having a similar headspace as what Troy Baker was seemingly in.
Show me something new about the role. Was there something that I overlooked? Was there something that I missed? Was there something that I didn't know? And the second that I found out that they cast Pedro, I was like, oh, well, we're bulletproof now.
We've already seen these people portrayed in an already brilliantly spectacular way, so what else can be said with them while still keeping it them? And now having seen the series, wow. I can't picture anyone else in these live-action roles, both bringing such nuance and life to every moment. The Last of Us in all of its forms has always lived in the negative moments, the silent pauses. You see so much of these characters with what's not being said, or the opposite of what's being said. Getting performers who understand that completely was paramount to putting Joel and Ellie on screen, not just having people wear the characters' clothes. While we're on casting quickly, let's celebrate what an amazing ensemble is here. Taking or inventing characters and making them feel lived in and worn. Life isn't easy in this world. Everyone's gone through shit to survive up to this point, and they show it on their face. The biggest missed opportunity for the series, though, is the sheer lack of my long-term life partner, Adam Driver. This is something I'm seriously hoping will be remedied by Series 2, and it would be great if you could please sign my petition. With the narrative of the first game being so airtight, the characters are extremely well defined, each serving their own point in the story as a reflection of the themes, exploring what different forms of love look like in this reality. Seeing how they've translated across into the other medium is fascinating. Much like any time you're watching The Two Towers and you lean over to whomever you're with to inform them about poor Viggo's toes. I took great pride in announcing whenever an actor from the game arrived in the show. Oh my god, it's Tommy! It's Marlene as Marlene! Oh shit, it's the waitress from the Avengers! I loved this, because not only are they great actors, so never stood out like they're there as a favour, but because they went to the Tarantino in Django Unchained school of cameoing. Come in, make an impression, and swiftly exit.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Despite its runtime, the first episode is such efficient storytelling. Showing the downfall of civilization through the perspective of someone younger is always a masterstroke. But actually spending more time with Sarah is so necessary to actually have the audience invested in her as a character. If I didn't know the story, I'd have presumed she would be the main character of the series, until Pedro selfishly usurps her to take the lead. Nope, not showing it. The whole opening, right up until Sarah's death, tells you everything you'll need to know about this adaptation. It'll be faithful when it needs to be, when the game has already done it in such a way where it's difficult to improve it, yet having its own unique voice, being able to change perspective, not even exclusively with Sarah and following her, but with the cold open as well, haunting and poignant. In whatever way the world will eventually end, will have already been warned decades in advance. In the first game, you start off as Sarah, then play as Joel, you chill out with Ellie for a bit, but then fall back to Joel, which for a game such as this is already a lot of perspectives, as it would have definitely felt too cluttered for any more. But in television, chef's kiss. There's something about losing Sarah in both mediums that really resonates. The sequence is almost shot for shot, and I struggle to analyse the filmmaking here. All of it falls to the wayside because of what you're being shown. A child whimpering, scared and trying to cling on to life. Oof, it's tough. You're going to need something more than time to heal that. Ellie's introduction encapsulates the character brilliantly. At first I was worried it seemed a little too, fuck you man, but the more you see Bella play the scene, you realise that that's a defence mechanism, not just someone writing to be down with the kids. The characters meeting is a great subversion as well. Not that they got along amazingly at the start of the game, it's just that this feels like a joke for players that works as a story beat for new viewers. Seeing Joel not even flinch to take Ellie down. Overall, the first episode did a great job at establishing this is the same, but it's its own thing. It's very clear where the initial ending of the first episode was before they stitched it to the second, making it for one long feature-length premiere, but it completely works. An example of studio notes being incredibly useful. They get a bad rap because just let the artists do what they want, man. But just like needing a scene added that shows that the clickers can't see in the next episode, it is so useful having people who haven't lived and breathed this story for the past 2 years to give a fresh perspective on it and ask questions when there's something they don't understand. I can't recommend the Last of Us podcast enough for the behind-the-scenes insights like this. week by week I would be just as excited for the next episode of the podcast coming out as the new instalment of the story. To hear firsthand from creatives working at the top of their game why they made certain creative decisions, why they deviated from the source material in places, and the logistics of shooting something on as large a scale as this. It is truly invaluable and generous for them to share. It's also the closest I'll ever get to hiding in Craig Mazin's cupboard to be a fly on the wall, seeing how he works, his thoughts on constructing story, questioning yet celebrating the source material. Yeah, it's pretty great. And Craig, the juice is definitely worth the squeeze. A lot has been said about the Bill and Frank episode, and I for one was left absolutely astounded, touting possibly the strongest script of the series and great direction from Peter Hall. Just to put into perspective the scale of the show, they built Bill's whole neighbourhood, and here is the director seeing the placement of the sunset and orientating the construction of the village around it because they knew they wanted the strawberry scene with that in the background. To have those resources is not only mind-boggling, but incredible for the artists, to help realise their vision to the fullest. In terms of accuracy to the events of the games, I'm not in the least bit fussed that they made Bill's section an actual story instead of an action scene. It was also the precise moment where I celebrated this being an actual TV show, not just in the adaptation being a show, but the fact that the TV show was a TV show. Whilst sounding a bit redundant, I mean it in the sense of now we're in the golden age of television, with production budgets as huge as possible, we're seeing a scale that was once exclusively for the big screen, now streamed directly to our televisions week by week. With that, most new prestige shows are seemingly embarrassed of what they are, instead being touted as 10-hour films, which for some stories absolutely works, but a lot of the time, no, you're a show, utilise that. You have such an exciting opportunity to have a new beginning and ending each week. Leave us on a cliffhanger, experiment with how you open the next story. Have the different episodes feel distinct and unique, whilst still keeping the forward momentum of the main story. It's by no means easy, but it's a fun challenge. Just seeing stories often muddle through, just keep going and going, feeling like all they can do is build up to the finale. Such wasted potential. Being a weekly release as well was such a delight. Often I'd catch myself thinking about the characters or seeing clips of, I'm your dad. No, I'm not showing it. And then ending up getting excited that the new episode was only a few days away. And as much as I'd have more than happily binged the show if it all dropped at once, after each episode, it felt like you actually got a full rounded story. I've just watched a good hour's worth of television and I'm satisfied. One of the things the new medium allowed the story to do is explore more perspectives. You don't have to stay as close to Joel's back smelling his sweat. Fleshing out Bill and Frank's story in such a touching way is just genius. And exploring more of Sam and Henry's dynamic and situation, with their deviations from the source text, was really interesting as well. Seeing that Mazin wanted to take a dynamic incredibly similar to Joel and Ellie, almost reflections of the two, and differentiate how they communicate, making them more distinct in the process. Both here and in the games, it's clear to see the parallels, like the characters are the embodiment of the themes of the story, showing it doesn't matter your initial relationship. Love finds a way of bringing people together, and naturally things fall into at least the basic idea of a parent-child relationship. It's the caring and nurturing for someone who you want to protect and keep innocent, yet is growing up out of necessity faster than they should have to. These two are just a bit further along on a similar journey to our main duo, having already done the big thing trying to save the other and facing the repercussions of that. There and There Part 2, with big warning labels on their foreheads saying, don't let this be your outcome. Having Sam be deaf makes it an infinitely more interesting thing to explore in this world. What are the logistics of that? In some ways, saving him from the sound of gunfire and other troubles of the world. With two similar dynamics, it also makes it something yet unexplored. They don't converse in the same way the main two do. There's something really touching that through this character and how they communicate, it allows Ellie to be the most honest she is throughout the whole story. This leading on to, I think, my favourite episode? I'm not even really sure I can pinpoint as to why. My main theory is that episode 6 of the Joel and Ellie show actually focuses on Joel and Ellie. After singing its praises for the multiple perspectives, I'm going to put my miserable bastard cap back on and say I wish that in this series we stuck with the main two slightly more. I wouldn't want to take any scenes away from the side characters though. It's more so just adding time for the main ones. Chilling with them, just talking. Ellie asking questions, Joel trying to think of an answer. This is the core of the whole thing, and I cannot get enough of it. Maybe I'm just a greedy bitch. With the production on this scale already, I can't imagine asking for another episode out of them. maybe just 5 minutes here or an extra scene there. There are too many podcasts in the world already, yet these two around a campfire for 500 episodes would heal a part of my soul in a way I can't describe. A quick side note, my brain is made of mushy peas, and it's been a few years since I played the game. When they reached the university and I saw those little monkeys scuttling along, I foolishly was so ready to see the long-necked fellas, misremembering where in the story it actually was. So for a few weeks I was very keen to have a calm and collected conversation with Mr. Mazin as to their whereabouts, which, to be fair, made the later moment a bit more special in some ways. The main departure in this adaptation is in the violence. The weight of it has more impact. Seeing Joel nurse his sore little hands from a previous episode's injury, carrying that across to highlight that you can't just combine a rag and alcohol to heal it up in no time. I love the fact that in a series with such big action set pieces, our leading man is out of action for considerable time from a wound you wouldn't think twice about in the game or most other shows. This quick little encounter isn't the most cinematic or high adrenaline. It's just a small skirmish you think they'll easily walk away from as a slight obstacle. It's great that it plays on that. It's not a huge battle with a named villain, just some dude. So much of the action is grounded, and I think they hit a good balance throughout the 9 episodes, showing it's difficult to kill someone. You can't just get easy headshots, and sometimes you've just got to double tap. The reason why I love the ending of this story is because it doesn't focus on a John Wick-style action scene. It shows you violence in the least flattering way possible. Joel just going full Travis Bickle. The final moment of the game and show is this dialogue exchange between our leads, and the final lines feeling like bullets. It focuses on the lie, the betrayal of the trust, both hiding what they truly feel. And damn, it's perfect. There's an ongoing debate I have with someone when it comes to adaptations. We'll discuss ones that maybe haven't worked so well and merits of others, and their main point typically falls back to the best adaptations or reboots are the ones which are the most faithful, and I couldn't disagree more. It's something that I try to argue against, but to be fair, most examples of successful ones do lean more on the faithful side. It's not until this series where I realised what it was in there that rings true throughout all the ones that work. It's nothing to do with how faithful or unfaithful you are. Naturally, changing a medium, you'll need to tailor how you're telling the story. It's the respect they have for the original text, knowing any shortcomings, weaknesses, what worked, what makes things great. Sometimes it's loving it enough to step away and branch out, which they do so well here. If we watch Joel crouch down and open drawers for supplies 70 times an episode, it wouldn't make for the most engaging television. So to even limit the amount of times we see clickers is an interesting choice. It's incredibly easy for someone like me to come along and critique areas or say something hyperbolic like, this is the easiest impossible adaptation, saying that all the previs and groundwork had been done for them with Naughty Dog games playing as films. It would be so easy to draw that conclusion and discount all the hard work and talent which has gone into every department of this show. If adapting Naughty Dog games or linear experiences like this in general was the quick cheat sheet to breaking the video game curse, then amazing. That's the treasure we found in an abandoned pirate shipwreck. Oh wait, the Uncharted movie is fine. I'm not going to pretend it's some abysmal experience. It's just sad knowing what could have been. It plays like a greatest hits album, showing you some of the sequences and characters you like, saying, hey, remember this? Stitching the existing material from the games together with paper mache that hasn't quite had a chance to dry yet. It's the perfect thing to compare the show to, both with rich linear source material. An argument could be made with Uncharted is slightly different because its inspirations are more filmic, letting you live your fantasy of being Indiana Jones. So what made it stand out in the game space isn't as hard to come by in films. I think it represents the route most game adaptations have gone down. It's still better than a lot of them that try to tell the same or similar story as their source material, but not resonating the same. Some parts end up feeling like decisions made for commercial reasons rather than what's right by the text. It's still difficult to see Ted's mate as Sully. They showed me different aspects to the character, but so much so that this is hardly recognisable as the same person. The biggest thing is time and space to breathe. Both mimic extended sequences from the games, yet while with the car it feels like a natural progression of the story, and this being an interesting way of filming it, I doubt it will take anyone out of the experience. Whereas in Uncharted, it feels like the narrative has been shaped exactly around fitting this sequence in. I can almost see the writer's room having the post-it note of plane crash on the board and moulding the story around it. and the fact that it crams so much of the 4 games into one film is commendable. It also just comes back to finding the right medium. On one hand, yes, Uncharted is your popcorn blockbuster, so having that on the largest screen possible is good fun. Just maybe the story has already been nailed in its original form, with the adaptation not bringing too much to those who never would pick up a controller. It also shows that avoiding a film version of The Last of Us is one hell of a bullet dodged, cramming in a 15-hour story into 2. Naturally, there are going to be pacing issues, and it may not flow as effectively as before. It seems like now that The Last of Us has been translated into a premium HBO show, it has suddenly been validated as a story. Like this game has earned its stripes to be in the big boys club. When no, the game still stands by itself, with its own merits, in its own form, in its own medium. The game and the show live concurrently, almost in a Venn diagram, and I love it. That's been one of the most exciting things. It allows me to share this story that means so much to me with those that I care about. Much like when my dad sat me down as a child and showed me Star Wars for the first time, it feels nice to be able to return the favour, and be like, here's this world that has meant so much to me, and you're going to love it. And it's not that I've never recommended anything to him before, but until now, this story was inaccessible in another medium, as games don't interest everybody. I think video games are one of the most excitingly creative mediums in which you can tell stories, but it's not for everyone. Now people have experienced this story, people who never would have picked up a controller, especially your controller. It's dirty and covered in Dorito dust, just please clean it. It's a health code violation. Especially with horror media in general, my mum would often ask why on earth I would like watching things like this, with people getting torn apart or scenes that have you on the edge of your seat. And at the start of episode 3, when she walked through the room, she said the same thing about Ellie channeling her inner Grey's Anatomy. Because on paper, yeah, why would anyone want to put themselves through that? But throughout the course of the episode, she started watching it a bit more here and there, eventually sitting down for the rest of it around here. I think that's a testament to the show beyond any awards or accolades it's bound to pick up. To show someone that there is so much beauty and nuance in these stories. I'm not going to be as pretentious as to say, when you're lost in the darkness, to look for the light. But it does kind of apply. Week after week, they produce top-tier television, feeling like this could all be for complete newcomers, and that is why I love it. This could exist independently to the game. That could have never existed, and this would still hit as a prestige, critically acclaimed show. The Last of Us means so much to so many people, and now that has expanded to many, many more. From the writers to assistant directors to caterers and location managers, so many departments working on full force to bring this show to life. Nothing about making a story of this scale and scope, with this many moving parts, a huge cast of characters, all these locations, special effects is easy. And of course it's hyperbole for me to pretend that it is. From the writing all the way to the end of post-production, you can see the love and craft that has gone into this series. Much in the same vein of what The Dark Knight is for comic book movies, inadvertently, this series has made The Last of Us, to many, the ambassador of interactive stories and gaming itself. If this show was your introduction to this story, then welcome. It's great to have you here. In my next video, I'll be discussing part 2 and why I think it could make for better television than part 1, which definitely won't make anyone on the internet angry at all. Other than that, thanks for watching. I managed to go the whole video without showing the...
I'm your daddy.
Oh, for God's sake.